Okay, good afternoon everyone and welcome to this call centre focus webinar in association with SpeechStorm. I'm Claudia Hathaway, Editorial Director of Call Centre Focus, and I'm delighted you could join us today. Now before we begin, I just want to mention that we want this session to be as really valuable for you, and as most things in life, the more you put in, the more you get out. So we do want you to ask questions and comments as we go along. And I'll be able to put them to our speakers. So you can do this by simply clicking into the questions tab on your control panel, typing in the question in the box provided, and clicking the send button. Now, I know everyone is going to take away some really useful tips from this session, so let's get started. I'm going to speak to you for a few moments now on the importance of making all contacts with customers seem personal to them. Then we're going to hear from Daniel Hong from Ovum on automation and personalised IVR. And then we're going to hear from Damien Kelly from SpeechStorm, who will talk to us about how to put personalisation into practice. So firstly, I'm just going to give you a bit of background about the use of IVR in the UK call centre industry. Now, it's hardly surprising that automation is on the rise, with contact centres looking to drive efficiencies wherever possible. And it's no wonder analyst Contact Able estimates that the cost of a telephony self-service session is up to 8 times cheaper than a traditional live telephone call, with the average call costing £4.08 and the average cost of a telephony self-service session at just 58p. So it really does make big difference. So according to Contact Able, then 36% of UK contact centres offer a full self-service option through a voice channel, which is up from 31% last year. And that doesn't include companies that offer IVR for routing or indeed web self-service. By the way, a lot of the statistics I'll be talking about over the next couple of slides are taken from the Contact Able report, the UK Contact Centre Decision Makers Guide 2011, and you can download the report from the website that's showing on this slide right now. So on average, 21% of voice self-service is handled through automated speech recognition rather than touchtone IVR, which is a figure very similar to that of last year, with the vast majority of that percentage made up of medium to large contact centres. Self-service interactions in small contact centres are still done mostly through touchtone IVR. However, as we'll hear from Daniel in a moment, automation can be difficult to get right, because if it's implemented badly, the customer can be left feeling that the company doesn't care enough to deal with them as an individual. Okay, so why is it so important to personalise customer interactions? Now, I don't want to labour this point because we've all heard these arguments lots and lots of times before, but in this tough economic climate, customer service really has never been more important, and it's absolutely vital to drive loyalty and increase individual spend from those loyal customers in order to remain competitive. Now, and if you mix into that the power that social media is now giving customers, and it's pretty clear that investing in the customer relationship is absolutely vital. Okay, so through our work on the Top 50 Call Centres for Customer Service programme, we've used extensive consumer focus groups to find out what really matters to consumers when they interact with a company. We discovered some quite obvious things, some quite interesting things. We found that there are a number of just hygiene factors. So these are just the minimum that consumers expect when they call. They expect the interaction to be timely, so they don't want to be kept waiting ages to get through. They want the interaction to be easy, so no complicated levels of IVR. And in fact, many of the individuals in the focus groups stated that they really dislike automated systems because they're too difficult to understand. So that's a big no-no. They also want the contact centre to be knowledgeable. obviously, they want the organization to know them and their interaction history, and also to be able to present them with useful information that might be able to help them in the future. Now, the real key to all of the above is reliability. I can't overstate the importance of this. The customer wants to be sure that when they hang up the phone, something is going to be done about their query or their complaint. The consumers in the focus groups wanted consistency in all these areas, and that's just the minimum that they expect in order to keep doing business with you. So it's really, really tough. But again and again during the focus groups, we heard that the only real way for a company to drive genuine delight in an interaction is to make it feel personal to that customer. It's important to make them feel the company actually cares about them and that a genuine effort has been made to make the experience a pleasure for them. They consistently talked about the companies they were delighted with as offering a degree of personal service, a degree of personal care. And the reason that personalization is so important, again, comes back to this element of reliability. If a company is seen to be making an effort, it implies to the customer that the organization has taken ownership of their problem and they're going to go away and fix it. And it also generates a feeling of trust, again, reassuring the customer that their issue is going to be resolved. Okay, so that's the important stuff. But we also know from our work on the top 50 that personalization is the hardest thing to get right. While the average performance scores for the 50 companies across the other factors that I mentioned, so the timeliness and reliability, the knowledgeable staff, all of those are consistently high, up in the 80s and 90s in terms of the performance score. But personalization scores are consistently the lowest across the board. So this might be a source of comfort to a lot of you, but it's worth highlighting that it also presents a huge opportunity, because those who can get this element right will really, really reap the rewards, because so many other companies are finding it difficult to get right. So our next speaker is going to tell us about personalization in the context of IVR. As the program manager and lead analyst for customer interaction at industry analyst Ovum, Daniel Hong is responsible for the tactical direction of contact center markets, and his work focuses on analyzing trends, strategies, and practices for speech recognition and IVR solutions. He's frequently quoted in the press and has featured in The Economist, Wall Street Journal, The Financial Times. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot of useful insights for us. Daniel, thank you for joining us.
Great, thanks, Claudia, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Well, to begin, what's going on in today's market? You've all heard the terms social, mobile, experience, and cloud really being overly used in almost all aspects of the tech world. But when you combine these forces in the market, it tells a compelling story, and it reveals what is essentially to come moving forward. Right now, servicing consumers in a world where the frame and basis of customer engagement is rapidly shifting presents one of the biggest challenges for organizations. With consumerization taking root, implementing a successful customer service strategy means enterprises need to look beyond traditional measures and essentially explore how they can service the customer on the customer's terms. So in social, with the phenomenon of social media, customers have unlimited access to information, and they can share information with these digital communities across the globe. Essentially, with the growing sphere of customer influence in today's viral Web 2.0 world, it's clear that customers are increasingly dictating how they want to engage with businesses as a customer. In the mobile realm, well, smartphones, which essentially provide customers with access to voice, email, web, SMS, and video, as well as other different types of medium, is rapidly displacing mobile feature phones. In fact, 75% of mobile phones shipped in developed countries in 2015 will be smartphones. Now, this means the customer is even more connected with the enterprise and can opt to interact through a single or multiple channels very easily on a single device. Experience. Now, also keep in mind that the rate of commoditization for products and services is accelerating because of globalization. Now given this, customer service is increasingly becoming more of a tangible differentiator and also a performance motivator for enterprises in the developed countries. Customer expectations of service, price, and delivery is essentially rapidly changing, and enterprises get this. In fact, customer retention is the primary goal above all else for enterprises doing business in the developed countries. So it's therefore all about customer loyalty. Now, to provide a frame of reference, poor customer service costs businesses $83 billion in lost revenues in just 2 years ago, and this number is from the developed countries across the globe. And finally, there's cloud. Essentially, cloud is changing the way products and solutions are created, delivered, and priced. Processes are changing, and the cost advantages of cloud can no longer be ignored. Now, overall, technology is not enough to improve the customer experience. Rather, we believe it's just one component of an overall strategy that also encompasses process optimization and process reengineering. So enterprises that have a superior and differentiated customer experience today have a successful strategy in place that relies on process and technology innovation in addition to creativity. And they have a clear line of sight to their customers, and they have a systematic approach in place to continuously monitor and improve the customer experience based on their customers' frustrations and their preferences. So Ovum conducted a survey of 4,000 consumers across the UK, France, Germany, the US, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, essentially the BRICS countries, earlier this year on the topic of preferences when it comes to customer service. So across these countries, what channels do customers use, and what are the most successful for resolving their issues on the first attempt? Now, by far and away, the top two answers given involve human contact. 3,233 of the 4,086 consumers were over 80% identified telephone conversations with customer service representatives, or CSRs, as the most successful. And this is followed by email at approximately 33%. And SMS, social networking, and automated service over the phone are essentially the least successful methods of resolving customers' issues. Numbers 2 and 3, respectively, speech recognition and touch tone, show how these both have low success rates when consumers try to resolve their issue on the first attempt. FAQ on websites and web chat have better first contact resolution rates than these. Now, the key takeaway here is the phone channel is not going away, even with proliferation of other channels, and the majority of consumers are still reaching for the phone to speak with live agents to resolve issues. When they need to be serviced immediately and effectively, they will call and they'll speak to a live agent. So we can end the webinar right here, and the key takeaway would be increase agent staffing by 500%. Make sure all the agents are very educated, they're tier 3 level capabilities and support, and they're located onshore. And you decrease wait time to under 5 seconds and scrap your automated telephony systems. But we all know that it's not reality, and it's the cost pressures and the need to improve customer satisfaction essentially trump the ability to fully staff your contact center operations and just have agents answering calls with barely any wait time. Now, why are automated telephony systems, touch tone, and or speech annoying and frustrating? Well, according to respondents, the #1 most frustrating reason is that automated telephony systems are not sophisticated enough. They cannot solve their problems without speaking to a live agent. This is followed by the time required to find the information they need takes too long, and poor menu structures which are too long or confusing. Now, these ultimately point to a poorly designed application. Finally, over 35% of respondents said the automated telephony system doesn't route them to the right agent with the right skill set. Again, this is an application and workflow design problem. And about 15% of respondents felt that speech recognition doesn't recognize your voice. Not surprisingly, this number is a lot smaller than a few years ago, as we've seen quite a lot of improvements in speech recognition rates over the years. And overall, customer frustration from automated telephony systems are a result of fundamental problems with application capabilities, application design, and workflow processes. We also asked consumer respondents how they would feel if an automated telephony system would remember the nature of their previous interactions with the enterprise in order to provide a more personalized customer experience. Now, the majority, or 74% of the respondents, are in favor of personalization in the automated telephony systems, while only 19% were uncomfortable if that technology was used, and the other 8% were indifferent. Now, Ovum believes that personalization will provide ample benefits for the enterprise by improving accuracy and efficiency, and essentially personalization can route customers quicker and more efficiently by remembering past interactions and better predicting the reason for a call. So when you roll out the tape over the next few years and you're looking at the evolution of IVR, personalization is kind of the next evolutionary stage for IVR when it comes to the overall evolution of IVR. So what is personalized IVR? Well, it's not a single product. It's a customer service solution constituted from a variety of technologies such as CTI, IVR, custom applications, business analytics, and reporting tools. A personalized IVR solution connects with enterprise databases such that the solution accesses caller histories, trends, and geographic locales, all information that might affect the nature of the customer service call. In essence, the solution creates a unique customer service experience by reconfiguring the automated call flows or by intelligently routing the caller to a skills-based agent. Now, this enables a swifter resolution of the problem, and bottom line, with personalization, the IVR has dynamic capabilities. So, for example, if a caller contacts a retailer that has deployed a personalized IVR solution, the solution might identify the caller based on his ANI or CLI, and through accessing the caller's purchase history, ascertain that the caller had previously placed an order for a certain item. Now, consequently, the automated self-service solution might activate a prompt asking if the caller is calling about his recent order. If the caller says yes, the automation can route the caller to an agent specializing in order queries. Now, there are different types of personalization when it comes to phone self-service and routing on IVR platforms. Now, the first one is what we call personalization by caller behavior. Now, this is where the IVR adjusts the speed of the interaction or the timeout values based on caller behavior. If the caller speaks quickly, for instance, the IVR will speed the interaction. Now, the benefit is solely on improving customer satisfaction, and today there are not many enterprises that actually use this type of solution. The level of personalization is relatively low, and the level of complexity falls in the basic category. Another approach to personalization is what we call personalization using outbound IVR. Now, outbound IVR is generally a component to an enterprise's personalization agenda. However, some enterprises deploy outbound IVR as a cost-effective way of adding personalization to their customer service solutions. So enterprises can use outbound IVR to target certain customers and push out relevant notifications or interactions. Now, this is an alternative for enterprises not yet ready to invest in technologies and services needed for truly personalized IVR. Now, on the scale, the level of personalization is higher than that of personalization by caller behavior, and the complexity ranges from basic to intermediate. A third approach is what we call personalization by caller type. Now, this solution segments the caller by type. For instance, when a banking customer calls his financial institution, the IVR will understand that the caller has a large sum in his account and will treat him accordingly as a valid customer. Now, depending on business rules, the IVR might bypass automation and just route him straight to a human agent, or the IVR might push automated prompts designed specifically for a certain class of customer. Now, this category of personalized IVR is simpler to manage, but it still requires enterprises to invest in CTI in order to identify the caller. Some back-end integration is also necessary as well. Most personalized IVR deployments fall in this category today. and this can be viewed as a stepping stone for more complex integrations. Now, this type of personalization segments callers into groups. On the scale, the level of personalization is relatively high, and the complexity level falls in between intermediate and advanced. And finally, there is personalization by caller relationship. Now, this type of personalization is not very common today because it requires a greater coupling between the IVR technologies and enterprise databases. So personalization by caller relationship determines the type of relationship a caller has with the enterprise. So for example, if a caller had previously contacted the enterprise via the web to complain about a certain product, or if the caller had made numerous prior phone calls to the enterprise, the personalized IVR solution will recognize this and alter the telephone interaction accordingly. So either by it'll happen by bypassing automation or by generating dynamic call flows. Now, this type of personalization typically requires heavier investment in business analytics and CRM solutions. The difference between personalization by caller relationship and by caller type is the extent to which the IVR system can predict customer needs. Now, this differs from a typical voice user interface, which is designed to understand customer needs. So this type of personalization recognizes callers on an individual level. Now, on the scale, the level of personalization is high and the complexity level is advanced, as this is essentially the most sophisticated level of personalization technology that can be deployed in the voice channel today. So while personalization by caller type and personalization using outbound IVR provide many inherent cost and performance benefits for contact centers, the real value that we see in personalization will come from those highlighted in yellow. And these are the more complex and they require tighter coupling between the IVR platforms and the enterprise databases. And integration is absolutely critical for these solutions to work. Once these solutions are integrated and deployed properly, that's when enterprises will be able to leverage the benefits of a fluid solution that helps reduce costs and improve customer sat and improve efficiencies. So this, in many ways, is the holy grail of personalization in the voice channel. So where does personalization make sense today? In high call volume and high transaction environments. And this is where an enterprise will really see the economies of scale go to work with personalized IVR. Now, amongst these enterprises will typically be contact centers that adhere to strict SLAs for service delivery, and these mostly include the financial services companies, the communications companies, public sector, and retail companies. Personalization also makes sense for companies that are adept in speech and have already deployed the technology. Now, if these companies want to bolster their speech investments, improve customer sat, streamline identification and verification, and also introduce more successful dynamic upsell and cross-sell campaigns to callers, they should consider personalization. And finally, personalization makes sense for companies that are embracing multi-channel strategies, and these are the companies that get it and are understanding the changing customer and the need to service customers across different channels effectively and consistently. So forward-looking companies are innovating when it comes to inbound and proactive outbound voice campaigns. They understand that the voice channel is still the heart of communications and are constantly looking to improve the customer experience. Now, these companies are rounding out the voice channel by improving automation and routing applications for agent assistance. So what types of companies are deploying personalized IVR and for what reasons? Now, there's a lot of information on this slide. I'm not going to go into much detail here because the white paper that we authored has this information as well. But typically, we're noticing investments for personalized IVR in communications, travel and hospitality, financial services, retail, healthcare, and public sector verticals. Now, if personalized IVR is really the next best thing since sliced bread, then why are companies not investing in it? Now that list would include A, the legacy infrastructure, B, proprietary back-end systems, and C, misconceptions and awareness. Not on here is hesitancy towards change, reduced budgets, and the cost of the solution. So most enterprises today have significant investments in getting back to the legacy infrastructure. Most enterprises have significant investments in legacy infrastructure, which has created a siloed environment when it comes to contact center investments. Integrating these disparate technologies with customer data in the past was very expensive and was cost prohibitive. There are a few approaches that exist in the market currently that help bring down integration costs, and enterprises essentially need to look to these solutions when evaluating and implementing personalized IVR. Now, these are Ovum strategic recommendations for enterprises looking down the route of personalizing their IVR, or those that actually have begun down the path of personalizing their IVR. So remember that data integration is key. Assess and identify stockpile data in your backend systems. So essentially, you need to improve your reporting and monitoring and analytics capabilities. And this is the area that has been lacking in the world of IVR, as in the past decade, the majority of tools have only shown call completion rates, call length, call failure, so on and so forth. So being able to extract intelligence from these tools is where companies must look to invest in to really make a difference in customer service and the bottom line. Avoid over-personalization. One problem with personalization is that if the system presumes too much or incorrectly, the caller will take offense. Issues also arise when trying to categorize callers based on type. While it might make sense for a certain subset of value customers to be relayed to a different node or directly to a specifically trained agent, there is a risk that callers might feel stereotyped or singled out. Therefore, enterprises should tailor their self-service applications based on the customer's specific business relationship. And one option could involve allowing customers to describe, perhaps during an online sign-up process, the preferences by which he or she wants to be identified. Also, treat personalized IVR as one component of an overall multi-channel and cross-channel strategy. The growing number of enterprises are unifying customer engagement across different customer touchpoints. In essence, they're changing from multi-channel to cross-channel in order to track the customer through a potentially complex labyrinth of interactions across multiple channels in a single session. So, for example, a customer begins a transaction on a website, then engages in web chat with an agent, then calls into the contact center to talk with an agent. Using cross-channel analytics and multi-channel CRM solution, the agent can be made aware of the different channels the customer has interacted with in the past, as well as the customer's intent prior to the call. And this enables faster and more efficient service. So for cross-channel operations, personalized IVR needs to take into account any previous transactions that have occurred in other channels, so contextually relevant information is presented to the caller. And finally, choose a strategic partner and build a roadmap. Make sure that the vendor that you choose, you work in the capacity of a strategic partnership. Make sure that their forward vision is in line with what you like to achieve, or your tactical plan and over your strategic plan over the next 2 to 5 years. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'm going to hand this over to Damian Kelly.
Thank you, Daniel, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Damian Kelly, and I'd like to start by introducing SpeechStorm. We're an IVR and mobile applications company, and we're very much dedicated to improving phone self-service and how customer care applications are delivered. If you don't know us or haven't heard of us, perhaps you have experienced some of our applications. If you're a customer of Comet or Dixon or Sky, then perhaps you will have used one of our IVRs. Personalized IVR is something that we have taken very much to heart. And the new research that Daniel has presented from Ovum today really reinforces what we've been learning from our customers in retail, in telecoms, and in financial services over the last number of years. And for us, the type of personalization that's appropriate differs very much from call to call. We see 4 key elements being important in delivering both better self-service and reducing the cost to serve. And they are the customer, context, intent, and status. So let me describe just a little about those. Starting with the customer, new customers or first-time users of an IVR should probably get a different treatment to regular callers who are familiar with how the IVR operates and have used it before. In the same way, you may want premium customers get special treatment or priority routing. And also, this is where we envisage customers having the option to express their own preferences about how the IVR deals with their call. Secondly, there's the context. And this, as Daniel has mentioned, include examples whereby perhaps you're waiting for delivery or you've previously reported a fault. Then the most appropriate thing for the IVR to do would be to provide an immediate status update. And in many cases, that will satisfy the caller's reason for picking up the phone. Similarly, if a customer is browsing on the web, if they're in the process of making a loan application, or if they've just tweeted a complaint about your service at an outlet, well then that context will certainly give a much better clue to both the IVR and ultimately to the agent as to how the call should be handled. A third factor is intent, and this really goes to trying to understand what it is that the customer wants to do and what the organization wants to do with that customer. So for example, if I call my bank, I shouldn't need to provide my account number and my PIN if all I want to do is check the opening hours of the branch. But if I want to do a sensitive transaction like setting up a new direct debit or doing a high-value funds transfer, then the level of security applied should be appropriate to that. And finally, there's the question of status. And this is really about how the organization should respond and in what capacity it has to respond. So, for example, if the contact center is open, well, do I have the right agent or skill set available to answer the call? Or would I be better putting this customer through to his or her relationship manager, or perhaps even transferring to somebody in a local store who's available and ready to help? Combining all of those things together gives a very practical approach to dealing with each call, and obviously that better self-service will lead to a lower cost to serve. Let me give you an example of that. So these figures are taken from one of our real communications customers. By personalizing the IVR treatment, what they've been able to do is to increase automation rates across a whole range of call types by anything between 20 and 40 percentage points. That means customers get more relevant options to what they want to do, they have fewer menus to navigate, they spend less time on the IVR and on the call, and they complete more transactions without needing an agent to help them. So if a customer has a bill to be paid, that's the option we offer. And we use the information already on the system to make that automated payment easier using their existing card or card payment details. And previously to this, many callers would simply have dropped out to an agent because they didn't have the right information to hand, didn't know their account number, or didn't know what their payment plan was. So across something like 5 million calls, that adds up to savings of about £500,000 a year, or 1.6 million over 3 years. Certainly nothing to be sneezed at in the current climate. Daniel talked earlier about barriers to adoption, and really it would be unrealistic to expect to deliver those kinds of results if it took 6 months, for example, to change a single prompt on your IVR. So what we focused on at SpeechStorm is delivering a set of applications that remove some of the technology blockers that Daniel described, that the business take control of how calls are handled, and really focus back on the customer. How we do that is through a number of things. We provide pre-built call flows for common processes with the personalization capability already built in, so that makes it easier to retrieve information from the existing systems, use that information to deliver a better call experience. But one size doesn't fit all, so we generally encourage our customers to introduce personalization gradually, to learn from how customers react, see what they like, see what they don't like, and concentrate efforts where it would deliver the most benefit. And we're using real-time performance monitoring so that we can see exactly what's happening on the IVR is critical to that. That, in turn, means that changes will tend to be made more often. We're discovering new ways of personalizing and new areas we want to explore. So we try to stream that process too and allow deployment of new call flows and new ways of personalization to be delivered in a controlled way without interrupting service. And going back to the communications customer that I described, the new IVR was in place in just 10 weeks. It was 5 months earlier than could be delivered through traditional methods. It took 60% less effort than building it in the old way it was taken. And on an ongoing basis, the business is able to continue to make changes, tweak the prompts, vary the call flows, and get to a better customer experience. And what we're finding is that our customers are tending to make changes more often, and they continue to do that. And that's because with more context available from other channels, from Twitter, from Facebook, from customers' own handheld devices, a far higher degree of personalization is possible. And we're getting to the point, I think, where customers are not only accepting it and welcoming it, as the Ovum research has pointed out, but some of them even are beginning to expect it. Claudia, I'll hand back to you. Claudia, do you want to take some of the questions that we've had from people this afternoon?
Apologies, there was something wrong with my audio there for a second. That was absolutely fabulous presentations, guys. Thank you so much. Some really insightful, thought-provoking stuff in there, and really practical for everyone listening as well. So thank you very, very much. Okay, so we've had lots of questions coming in. We don't have an awful lot of time to answer all of them, but I'll get through a few of them, I'm sure. So, so a couple of questions. A couple of people have asked very similar questions. In that, do you need if you wanted to personalize your IVR, do you need to kind of rip out legacy systems, or can you bolt this kind of technology on? I'm not sure who's best to answer that.
Perhaps, Claudia, if I answer that, a little of that. From our point of view, we see that certain elements of personalization are relatively straightforward to achieve, even with very basic integration. So even uploading to the IVR some information about your customer profile, or deliveries that are due to happen in the next day or two, can be a very effective way of delivering a personalized service to a customer, but without having to do a great deal of in-depth integration. Daniel, would you add to that?
No, I agree with what you said. I don't think I have anything else to add.
Okay, good news. Okay. So how is it possible to sort of measure the improvement of the customer experience with personalization? And if it is, how can you do that?
Sure. This is Daniel. I think when it comes to looking at the performance, it's really important to start looking at it, the performance of the application, and if the customer is satisfied, and overall customer experience through different lenses. I mean, the call completion rates, call handling rates, the zero out, those metrics are very antiquated in a lot of ways. And I think that companies and enterprises essentially need to start looking at it through task completion rates, seeing the application performance, seeing if the customer or the caller calls in, and whatever it is that he or she was trying to achieve is accurately tracked. So you're able to not just have looking at call completion rates, but also looking at looking at it more granular to actually look at the performance of the personalized application. In addition to that, I think that NPS, or Net Promoter Score, is a new metric, relatively new metric, that a lot more enterprises are trying to understand, and I think that that kind of folds into the larger customer experience picture.
Definitely. Okay. Damien, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the Net Promoter Score is one that certainly we've seen our customers placing increasingly more focus on, alongside things like even directly asking customers, not just would you recommend us based on the interaction you've had, but also asking about customer effort and how much effort the customer themselves has had to put into getting the task completed, whether that's paying a bill or completing a purchase. And I think both of those have been well established as good indicators of customer loyalty, which in turn is something that organizations are very keen to promote.
Fab. Okay. So guys, just I think just one sort of final thing to end on is if you guys can just give us a kind of a rundown of what the benefits are that you think personalization could bring to a company's IVR. If you can just kind of summarize it in a few sort of verbal bullet points, if you like. Okay.
I'll mention a few, and maybe Daniel, you'd add. I think certainly shorter call times will be an outcome. Increased usage of self-service, so customers choosing to complete their task on the IVR rather than feeling that the IVR is something to be got past in order to get to a live agent. For retailers using the context from the web or from other channels, it's maybe about fewer abandoned baskets and driving up purchase rates. And certainly the impact then on things like Net Promoter Score or direct end customer effort, where customers are expressing their own satisfaction. I think given some of the IVRs that are out there at the moment, to get something which is even a little bit personalized can generate a very positive and surprisingly warm response from a customer.
Yeah, make a big difference. Yeah.
I think just to add on to what Damien said there, and it's pretty comprehensive, what he just outlined. When you're looking at the phone channel and how that's evolving, the complexity of calls are going to increase. So we believe that, we posited in 2015, the call volumes will begin decreasing in the developed countries because of the plethora of self-service options out there and because of smart devices and the customer being able to do more on that device. But when they can't kind of finish or complete the transaction or resolve the issue that they're trying to resolve on the smart device, they're going to need to talk to an agent. And when that call gets transferred to the agent, whether it hits a personalized IVR to do a little bit more of a qualification of and understanding of what it is that the customer is trying to do, or routing that straight to an agent, there's still a lot of personalization elements there that can be leveraged across kind of the multiple different channels. So I think that personalization in the IVR channel, that kind of the intelligence behind that is going to help drive a lot of personalization and context-driven transactions and routing later on. So I think that's kind of the bigger picture. And in addition to what Damien said, I think that there's a lot of room for cost reduction and efficiency, looking at it from a high level, which will ultimately impact the bottom line.
Fabulous. What a brilliant point to end on. Thank you so much. So I think that is all we've got time for. Please don't worry if your question hasn't been answered. We will get in touch via email to answer those. And I just want to remind all attendees as well that you'll be sent an email with a link to the Ovum white paper, how automated customer care can feel less automated and more caring. Thank you again to our excellent speakers, to Daniel and to Damien, and to all of you for attending and contributing. Have a great afternoon, and we hope to see you on future Call Center Focus webinars.